Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, John Haynes, A Conversation with Death. The man who rules the world and the angel of darkness take on a horde of demons in this inaugural John Haynes series adventure. Get John Haynes, A Conversation with Death for 99 cents on Kindle or in paperback today. You've heard me say in numerous videos that Marvel Studios is in a state of decline. And when I look at films like your Spider-Man Homecoming, Black Panther, and Avengers Infinity War, I see a real serious decline as related to quality. And when I heard Kevin Feige make several announcements regarding the direction of Marvel Studios after Phase 4, that's when my concerns about Marvel Studios being in trouble became worries, because it's clear to me that Marvel Studios is in a state of decline, and if Kevin Feige takes Marvel Studios into this direction, we will be starting to see the end of Marvel Studios. Now, the first decision that your Kevin Feige made that about Marvel Studios that was really concerning to me was the announcement that Captain Marvel would be the new face of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, this announcement is quite troubling because Marvel's Captain Marvel is just not a popular character in Marvel Comics. Your Captain Marvel has been rebooted at least about 6 or 7 times over the last decade, and the character just has not gotten over with comic fans. So, because the character does not have a base of fans, that means that the movie just can't build any momentum and have a guaranteed audience for it. And when we listen to the actress who plays Captain Marvel, her attitude really turns off a lot of comic fans. Your Brie Larson is one of these third wave feminists, and whenever she gets on social media, the way she presents herself really does not get all those people who are on the fence about Captain Marvel motivation to go out and see the film. Now, this film, which was supposed to be, introduced in Avengers Infinity War, there was a very cold response to her symbol coming up. I remember being in the Magic Johnson as the post credit scene was coming on, and I did not see the cheers, I did not see the enthusiasm as I saw in previous Marvel movies. All I saw was complete indifference, and the indifference, it came from children. This should be quite troubling to your Kevin Feige, because these children who are supposed to be your core target audience, they weren't interested in Captain Marvel. They could care less. They were on their way out of the theater. Because of the theater I went to, Magic Johnson, again, a lot of kids were going to see this film as part of their class, and the kids just didn't care. This is something, again, Kevin Feige really needs to be concerned with, because if kids aren't interested in this movie is not going to do well at the box office, because you have two core audiences that aren't interested. You have many comic fans who are looking at this movie and saying, I really don't like this character, and then I look at this actress and the way she's behaving on social media, and it's a turnoff. And then you have kids who are completely indifferent to this character, and this is a danger sign for Kevin Feige, because if this film fails, he may be on the same road to unemployment that Kathleen Kennedy is on right now, because of the way she destroyed the whole Star Wars brand. Now, again, when it comes down to this Captain Marvel, she is not ready to be a flagship character. She's in no position to be a flagship character. And the reason why she's not, again, is because she has no audience from the comic book community. She has a lot of comic fans just don't like her, and she's an untested, unproven character. Now, I could see Black Panther being made the face of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because Chadwick Boseman is a very charismatic performer, and when it comes down to Chadwick Boseman, he's the perfect person to take over for Robert Downey Jr., because he not only is a very charismatic performer, he has numerous box office hits under his belt, he has a good audience relationship, and he has a box office hit with Black Panther under his belt. And you would think using Chadwick Boseman as the face of the Marvel Cinematic Universe would be a no-brainer. But Kevin Feige thinks that Brie Larson, a person who has a very negative perception in social media and playing a character that no one likes, is going to be the perfect person to make the face of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And again, that's very troubling when you think about Phase 4. And what's even more troubling about Phase 4 are all the plans for movies that feature heroines. Now, as a writer of strong heroines, I know that there is an audience for a movie that features a strong heroine, and Wonder Woman really showed us that there is a possibility of a film featuring a heroine doing well. But it's clear to me that when I look at Marvel's catalog of characters and the way they're executing concepts, that they're not really focusing on trying to create a quality story like the writers of Wonder Woman tried to do, because the film was good for the first 3 quarters, but the final act was just a hot mess. But Wonder Woman did have its heart in the right place, and it had Patty Jenkins to navigate that film. Now, again, I know that there's an audience for a film featuring a heroine, but the big problem with many films that feature heroines is the bad writing, like films like Ghostbusters 2016 and Ocean's 8, which feature dumbed down characters and characters that never really go through a character transformation arc. And that's one of the things that leads to many films that feature heroines doing badly. And when I look at the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the heroines they want to try to push, like your Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel, I really see Marvel Studios being in trouble, because Kamala Khan is just not a character that is over also, and she's also a character that really does not have good storytelling ability. I don't see how you can tell a story with this character on screen, and I also don't see her having any sort of rogue that would be interesting to watch, because this is the big problem with Marvel Studios, is that they want to push this diversity campaign that many people call SJW Marvel in the comics and bring it to the movies. However, when I look at the characters, they all flash and they have absolutely no substance. So outside of them being women and minorities, there's no depth there, there's no layers there, there's no story there, there's no conflict there. And for them to sit there and bring these untested, unproven characters into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this is a boneheaded move as I see it, because when it came down to many of those classic Marvel characters like Captain America, Thor, Iron Man, the Incredible Hulk, the Avengers, they all had built an audience over the last 50 years, and they all built a following over the last 50 years. And because they had those followings and people saw that the characters were true to themselves from the comics, they had a reason to go out and buy movie tickets for those characters. However, when we look at these newer characters, like people are pondering Miles Morales Spider-Man, who was just redundant, or your Kamala Khan Ms. Marvel, there's not really much there for a writer to work with. There's not much there as related to storytelling, because when we look at their comics are not very written well, and the characters aren't very well developed. And to make movies featuring those characters, this is a bad sign. And when you hear people like Kevin Feige sitting there talking about the future is female at the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that's also quite troubling, because again, you're sitting there talking about the future is female when it's clear that there's no audience for these heroines at the box office. Because when we take a look at your Halle Berry Catwoman, which flopped, when we take a look at your Ocean's 8, which just recently flopped, when we look at your Ghostbusters 2016 that recently flopped, we see that there's no audience for this type of movie, yet they keep making this type of movie even after movies, again, like your Halle Berry Catwoman, your Ocean's 8, your Ghostbusters 2016, your Atomic Blonde, your Proud Mary. Clearly, there's a clear pattern as related to these action movies, and it's clear that the audience doesn't want to see females in these kind of roles, especially when these roles are so poorly written. Because when it comes down to these heroines in many of these films, with the exception of Wonder Woman, you usually see them either trying to be too masculine, or you see them being dumbed down to the point where people just can't believe them, or they're put in a position where men are doing things for them, or they're bumbling and stumbling their way into things, or like Rey in Star Wars, they literally become Mary Sues who know how to do everything and know how to do anything. And that leads to a very poor entertainment experience for the viewer because they're watching this character who isn't going through any sort of character transformation arc where they have to go through some sort of struggle, some sort of hardship. They don't have to overcome any sort of obstacles or adversity. And that makes for a very hard thing to watch because when it comes down to the viewer, they want a character they can relate to and identify with. And it's hard to relate to and identify with characters that are either really annoying because they're just so dumbed down and stupid and bumbling and stumbling, or they're just so arrogant because they're such a know-it-all because they're a Mary Sue, or they're just so obnoxious that there's nothing redeeming there. Now, as a writer of heroines like Isis and Eaststeam and Matilda Crowley and many other heroines that I've written, I know that you have to make this character likable. You have to make us connect with this character. You have to find a way to humanize this character. And this is something many writers in Hollywood just have not mastered as related to heroines. And that's why many of the heroines wind up dying at the box office. And the other reason why heroines wind up dying at the box office in terms of sales is because many of these films, again, don't try to give this character any sort of antagonist that people can relate to. In some cases, they try to give you this masculinized antagonist, and many people just don't want to see a woman acting like a man. And in other cases, they give them a stupid antagonist, or they give them a task and they have a beta male do the work for them. And that's something people don't want to see. What people want to see relating to heroine is they want to see the heroine overcoming the obstacles and overcoming the odds, and they want to see relationships between the heroine, because Buffy the Vampire Slayer got it right, Xena Warrior Princess got it right, in that both of those series focused on relationships, and they focused on things related to what women would see in a conflict. And that was one of the things I did when I was writing Isis Amari's Revenge and Isis Wrath of the Cyber Goddess, was I focused on relationships, and I also focused on what women would see another woman as, and that women are usually focused on humiliating another woman or trying to find some way to hurt another woman, like I put when the Eaststeam Delilah feud. I always focused on those aspects, and those are things that would be fascinating to see on screen, but we don't see them on screen because many people, like in Marvel Studios, they're just focused on the fact that they want to put a woman on screen, but they don't want to put anything related to what drives a conflict for a woman on screen, because what drives a conflict for a woman is very different than what drives a conflict for a man, and we're not going to see that in Phase 4 because they just want to put a woman on the screen for the sake of diversity, but they don't want to focus on giving her a quality story. When I look again at Captain Marvel, Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel, and many of the heroines, they really don't really focus on giving them the kind of stories they should have. Now, another thing that was quite troubling about your Kevin Feige and his announcements about Phase 4 is he announced that there would be introductions of LGBTQ characters in MCU movies. Now, I don't mean to be a homophobe or what people would say that, but when it comes down to these LGBTQ characters, they have no place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe or Star Wars because these are family movies, and as family movies, we really do not need to be focused on things like sexual orientation. There's no place for, as I see it, sexual orientation in a family movie. A family movie that features like characters like Star Wars or superheroes, they need to be PG, PG-13, and because we have children going to see these movies, and when people hear things like Lando Calrissian is a pansexual, guess what? All those people who have children don't want to take their kids to go see any movie with any sort of sexual orientation being talked about, because that's something that parents feel very uncomfortable about taking their children to go see. And that announcement that Lando Calrissian was a pansexual was one of the reasons why Solo died at the box office. Because, again, when it comes down to superheroes and fantasy characters like Star Wars, people want to feel comfortable about being able to take their children to go see these characters. These superheroes and superhero characters, what they want to go be able to do is say, I can take my kids to see this and just see these superheroes fighting the bad guys, and they want to see a safe movie where they can see superheroes taking on the bad guys. They don't want to have to sit there and listen to somebody tell me about their sexual orientation, because they want to be able to talk to their own children about sex, and they want to be able to do that at an appropriate time. No one wants to be able to say, I want to take my 4-year-old and my 5-year-old who just wants to see superheroes fighting bad guys, and then have somebody coming in here talking about they are LGBTQ or they're non-binary. This is the type of stuff that just does not belong in a family movie. A family movie, again, should just be family oriented. And when I look at Solo's failure, again, it was partially due to that Kasdan guy saying that Lando Calrissian was pansexual, and people just don't want to see that type of content in their movies. And with these type of announcements that Kevin Feige is making, he's literally laying the foundation for the end of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because he's putting elements in these films that people don't want to see. He's making films about characters that don't have an audience, and he wants to try to promote diversity without having a proven audience platform. Now, what they didn't understand about Black Panther was that Black Panther was a character that had a big audience, and he had an audience that was literally chomping at the bit and anticipating his movie for over a year, and that group came out in a frenzy for that movie. I don't see that type of frenzy for Captain Marvel, and I think Marvel Studios knows it's in deep trouble, because when they look at Captain Marvel and you see no trailer, and this film was supposed to come out in a year, no teaser, no anything, they know that they have a bit of a problem, in the same way that Warner Brothers knew it had a problem with Patoff's Catwoman back in 2003. Now, back in 2003, Patoff's Catwoman was ripped and roasted before it even hit the theaters, and I remember over a year of literally comic fans literally savaging that movie before it was released. And Halle Berry's career took a huge hit once Catwoman came out, because once people saw that picture of the costume, that literally built up the fire and momentum, which led to that film dying at the box office. And when I look at Captain Marvel and I look at Phase 4, I see the beginning of the end of Marvel Studios, because you cannot have a superhero franchise and a group of movies built around a woman just for the sake of being a woman. She has to be a proven leader. And it's clear to me that Chadwick Boseman should have been the face of Phase 4, because you could have organically transitioned into Fantastic Four with the Black Panther, and you could have organically transitioned into even the X-Men with the Black Panther. It would have been a more organic transition with those characters, and you would have been able to do that because, again, Black Panther is a part of the Fantastic Four family, and that would have been something that they could have done, because, as I see it, if you want to do a great character, you should have been focusing on characters that are iconic, like Fantastic Four or X-Men, because if Disney buys Fox, that's where you need to go, and not focus on untested, unproven characters like your Kamala Khan, who has just not gotten over, your Carol Danvers, who many call Carl Manvers, who has just not gotten over, or many of what many people call these SJW Marvel characters, because the focus on the SJW Marvel characters is going to lead to box office failure, because you need that core base of comic fans to come out and support these movies. You need these guys on the message boards and girls on the message boards talking about these characters, and you need to build that momentum if you hope to build strong box office for these characters. And when I look at Marvel Studios Phase 4, I don't see Kevin Feige really planning this out constructively. It looks like he's just pushing identity politics. And when it comes down to identity politics, that really hasn't sold Marvel Comics. So how can it sell Marvel movies? That's the critical question I have to ask. And when I look at the answer, I look at an answer that tells me that Kevin Feige may be joining Kathleen Kennedy on the unemployment line. If you'd like to try some of my SJS Direct publications that feature strong heroines like Isis and the Isis series, E-Steam and the E-Steam series, or Matilda Crowley in the Spinsterella trilogy, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com in the description box. There you can pick up these characters in paperback or the Kindle edition. And if you want to help me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, Bride of Dracula. Goddess Next Door and John Haynes team up to take on the Dark Vampire in this action-packed Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Bride of Dracula in paperback and e-readers